Guys, Rudrick here, and welcome back to Rudrick Plays The Last Story. Last time we finished the second optional chapter in the game, the last optional chapter in the game, actually. That's the last one we can do. Today we're in the library, and we're gonna learn some stuff, but first... I know, that'd come in handy, wouldn't it? Hi, Garrett.
I think the real challenge is ahead, especially when I see these kids. We have to make the world something those who died could be proud of. I hope our new ruler is up to it.
Well, maybe she is.
Gonna be a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Where did Uncle Dagran get to? He said he'd play with me. Oh, I guess he's forgotten.
Yeah, Uncle Dagran won't be coming anytime soon. Anyway, like I promised, today we're going to read the stuff in the library, finally. Now, as you can see, there is a ton of stuff here. A ton. I'm going to start at the top and work my way all the way down here. So if you're not really into backstory episodes, you could probably skip this one because this is probably all I'm going to do. But if you really want to learn more about the stuff, get kind of a recap, and maybe even more detail of what's going on and what kind of the story of this game and kind of the back stuff you don't really need to know, well, then kick back, grab some popcorn and a drink, and let's get started. Argonin and the Sorceress. It was here on this island that I first met that beautiful sorceress. My search for a way to end the war ravaging the land led me to the rite of celestial summoning. This rite enables its user to call a great force from beyond the sky and make its tremendous power their own. And it is said that only the sorceress has ever succeeded in mastering this rite. The sorceress was once an ordinary human being who lived in a remote, nameless village. After being accused of heresy, she resolved to leave her home behind and protect her fellow villagers from those who might seek to prosecute her. In the wake of these events, the sorceress made her way to the still unspoilt Lazarus Island to live a life of seclusion, away from the people of the world. It was here that I approached her and proposed to use the rite of celestial summoning to bring an end to the conflict. That moment was the start of all that was to come. Argonin and the Sorceress 2. In the end, we were able to use the great power called by the Rite of Celestial Summoning, the Outsider, to bring an end to the conflict. We harnessed the Outsider's near boundless power using our own magical talents and various magical artifacts, and made use of it in every way possible, both as a simple energy source and as a weapon. And so we came to possess a terrible power, greater than anything created by man. I wished to use this power as a deterrent to bring peace. I knew in my heart that peace brought about by fear could hardly be called peace at all, but I felt that it was necessary to rein in the fires of war before they turned our entire world to ash. I could seek a more permanent solution once the current crisis was over. I succeeded in my goal. All who bore witness to the power of the Outsider laid down their arms and heeded my pleas. All of the warring factions were weary from the conflict and had lost the energy to continue. The Empire itself, too, was in a precarious position, and so gladly acceded to negotiating treaties of peace with all involved parties. However, it was not long before a new problem surfaced. Trees withered, springs dried up, and the once beautiful plains were transformed into mountains of dust. The land was gradually dying. At first we had no idea what the cause could be. Was it the effects of the war, or had a new threat befallen the land? The sorceress and I searched for the cause in desperation, and when we uncovered the reason, I was left speechless with disbelief. Argonin and the Sorceress 3. The new blight that had befallen the land was caused by the very power that had finally brought us peace, the Outsider. Never had I known such a cruel irony. The sorceress and I tried all we could to halt the decay that ailed the land, but each attempt was met with naught but failure, until after several years of trying in vain, she told me of a new method. She proposed that we split the Outsider in two, suppressing its power and halting the draining effects it was exerting on the land. Naturally, I approved, and we worked together to carry out this new plan. However, I had no way of knowing what the result of our efforts would be. The sorceress disappeared, for a price had to be paid for splitting the outsider in two, the soul of the one who had summoned it to this world. I knew nothing of this until it was too late. One half of the outsider was sealed on Lazarus Island. The other half was sealed on a continent far across the ocean. The decay ravaging the land did not come to an end, but its rate of progression had slowed to a significant extent. My next obligation was to find a way of bringing the gradual demise of our world to a total halt. I believed that this was the only way I could pay tribute to my love, who had risked everything for my proposal and eventually paid the ultimate sacrifice. Argonin and the Sorceress 4. I do not have much time left in this world. I can only hope that future generations are able to forgive me for my powerlessness and the dark legacy I must leave them. As I write this record, my final days draw near. I know not how much time has elapsed since the passing of my beloved. The days all merge together into a single colorless blur. I have grown old, weaker with every day, just like the world around me. I have no strength left for conflict or for magic. I am in no doubt that this will be my final message to the world. After all these years, I have devised a method of returning the outsider to the sky, yet it is too late to carry it out. This rite requires the presence of both myself and my beloved. Alone I cannot fulfill my duty. My only choice is to entrust this task to the generations yet to come. The outsider's summoning has left an enduring mark upon the blood of the House of Argonin, and also upon the blood of all those descended from my love. It was not my wish that our subsequent generations should pay for my failure. It pains me to burden our children with such a legacy. I can only pray that one day, two who bear these bloodlines shall meet once more. Though the possibility of this may be very slight, I firmly believe that the day will come when the outsider can be returned to its rightful place beyond the sky. History of the Empire. Long ago, before the Empire was founded, this continent was torn by a centuries-long war. Many kingdoms rose only to fall in the constant struggle for dominion. It is told that from amidst this relentless warfare emerged one benevolent king, who established the kingdom that was to become the foundation of our empire. Although it is now difficult to believe, humans and Gurak coexisted alongside one another in that kingdom of old. The humans with their knowledge and wealth, and the Gurak with their physical strength and technology, strove together to build a great civilization. However, as time passed, the humans, fearing the technology and strength possessed by the Gurak, sought to reign supreme. This evolved into an elitism that was to mark the beginning of the persecution of the Gurak. The reigning king did not have the power to halt these social changes, and was ultimately forced to make the decision to banish the Gurak and reform the kingdom anew. Through these actions, he was able to bring further wealth to the humans and unite the citizens in a common cause. He helped only to reclaim the peace and order that had vanished from the kingdom. Thus the Gurak were banished to a land in the far south, whilst those who had fought well in the conflict to expel the Gurak were granted land and status, in what would become the foundation of the nobility. The kingdom expanded into a great empire, spanning the entire continent, yet this peace would not last forever. History was doomed to repeat itself. In time, the lords of the empire grew to crave independence, leading to civil wars over political power and territory. Very soon, these many small conflicts grew into a great war, engulfing the entire empire. Yet this war came to an abrupt and unexpected end. The Lord of Lazarus Island, founder of the great House of Argonin, built a weapon more powerful than any seen before or since. In the face of such a threat, the warring factions laid down their arms and sought peaceful negotiations with the Empire. With such a weapon, it would have been a simple task to seize control of the entire continent. Yet the Argonin founder sought only peace. He used the weapon as a deterrent, nothing more, thus securing the stability and prosperity that our empire has enjoyed ever since. The Sealed Fortress. Long ago, a terrible war threatened the very existence of our entire continent. Using the power of the outsider, the founder of the House of Argonin built a great moving fortress, operable only by one who bears the outsider's mark. The overwhelming power of the moving fortress served as a deterrent and brought an end to the war. Afterwards, to prevent anyone misusing this terrible power, it was then sealed away, and now only a legend remains. When crisis befalls Lazarus, one shall appear who bears the mark of the outsider, and he shall be the island's savior. Ancient magic. There exist 2 spells that can be commanded only by those in whom the blood of Argonon runs thick. Because they are intended to protect the awesome power that is the outsider, they may only be invoked in the presence of one who bears the outsider's mark. The first of these spells serves to protect others from harm by surrounding their bodies with magic. Known as Ancient Barrier, this spell can protect its targets from any form of attack. The power to protect one's comrades is a great blessing indeed. The second of these spells calls upon the power of a sentinel beast, one of the twin dragons charged with the protection of the outsider. Okay, those were actually dragons, and I laughed and called them, the Blue Eyes White Dragon and the Red Eyes Black Dragon. They actually are dragons. I thought they were phoenixes or such, but no, they're dragons. Which, I guess they are dragons. Anyway, continuing. However, strict conditions must be met in order to perform this spell. Most notably, the caster must earn the recognition of the sentinel beast to be summoned, and it may only be called forth in a situation worthy of doing so. So that the sentinel beast shall not be summoned needlessly, use of this power will only be permitted during times of great crisis, in which the human power of the Argonon family alone is insufficient. Guardians, the will of the land. Our great land is covered by forests, symbols of life itself. Yet there are few who truly understand the nature of these complex living beings. The roots of a forest trees reach deep below the ground, intertwining with one another to form a vast information network. So deeply connected are their lives that it would be no exaggeration to call them one giant organism. Over millennia, the forests developed a consciousness of their own. This manifested as beings known as guardians. It is said that in times of crisis, the guardians will send forth their emissaries to guard humanity and aid them avert the danger, perhaps in human form or in the guise of an animal. As a result of the blight that has plagued our land in recent years, many once proud forests have begun to waste away, causing much concern among the people of the land. Where once the guardians were frequently slighted in all parts of the land, in recent years these sightings have steadily declined. There are even some who claim that these beings have died out completely. The Outsider's Power, Origins. The Outsider, a sentient rock called to this world from beyond the sky by the right of celestial summoning. It possesses the unique ability to absorb the life force of the world around it and convert it into its own sustenance and strength. Anger, sadness, greed, loneliness, despair, happiness. The outsider possesses all of the same emotions and feelings as do people. Whilst it yearns to be set free, it also seeks out others with whom it can share its emotions. When it finds such a being, the outsider inscribes its own mark upon the body of its new companion, and the two entities become linked from that moment on. This mark grants the bearer of the outsider's tremendous This mark grants the bearer the outsider's tremendous power. The nature of this power is determined by the will of the one who bears the mark. It can be seen as a manifestation of this person's most heartfelt desires. I wished for this world to be at peace, for an end to the war that plagued the land, to the constant and harrowing loss of life that afflicted all the people of this nation. It caused me unspeakable pain to watch as innocent souls, who had not even had the chance to learn of happiness or joy, were cruelly torn from this world for the sake of a meaningless conflict. I refused to accept the futile death and loneliness. The Outsider's Power, Resonance. The outsider has responded to the strength of my emotions and granted me its power. As I stood on the battlefield, I found myself able to call forth a shining light from my right hand. Upon doing so, all hostile beings, both human and monster alike, began to direct their hatred towards me alone, losing all self-control and attacking me in a violent frenzy. Naturally, this situation exposed me to a great danger, but through this self-sacrifice, the power granted me the unprecedented opportunity to protect my allies from harm, and enabled me to dominate the battlefield and bring the fighting to a swift and decisive end. More wondrous still, it granted me the ability to revive those who had collapsed from their wounds in battle. I only wish it were possible to resurrect those who had passed away naturally or been fatally wounded. But alas, it seems that even this miraculous power has its limits. It can aid only those who have fallen in battle. Perhaps this power, too, came to me as a result of the outsider resonating with the sorrow that has consumed me in this age, when it seems that life has lost all value. I have named the miraculous abilities that I have been granted, the power of the outsider. The outsider possesses all of the emotions of man. One cannot discount the possibilities that one day someone will emerge who will use its power to bring about death and destruction. I dread to think what ruinous power would be unleashed from the darker emotions we possess. The outsider's power is neither good nor evil, but depends on the emotions of he who bears its mark. This must not be forgotten, and only those who are pure of heart should be permitted to approach the outsider. A decisive weapon. Hidden within Lazarus Castle is a weapon of paranormal power. It is a decisive weapon that effectively harnesses the outsider's tremendous power to destroy all in its path. A power such as this, capable of obliterating an entire mountain in a single blast, must be used responsibly. It should serve solely as a deterrent for the protection of the Empire. This weapon should only be put to use in the very gravest of circumstances, where the survival of Lazarus Island itself is at stake. The Rite of Argonin. Here I describe the spell that is the product of my life's work, the Rite of Celestial Liberation, a counterpart to the Rite of Celestial Summoning. The rite can only be performed at a specific place by specific people. It must be conducted by the direct descendants of those who performed the Rite of Celestial Summoning, myself and the sorceress. Both must be present on Stargazer's Tower where the Rite of Celestial Summoning was first performed. This rite will make it possible for the first time ever to communicate directly with the outsider. Most important of all is the presence of one who bears the outsider's mark. It is this mark that makes communication with the outsider possible. No complicated procedures are required in order to perform the rite. It involves simply the holding of hands and the will to reach out to the outsider and make a wish. A wish that the future may be bright for both the outsider and our world. The Sorceress Song. The founder of the House of Argonin very much enjoyed singing a particular song. It is said to have been the favorite song of a woman he once loved. The identity of his beloved is unclear. However, one theory claims that she was a famed woman known only as the Sorceress, and that this song originated in the village where she was raised. The song is about pursuing one's dreams, no matter how many times one may face defeat. It tells the importance of spreading your wings and flying high together with those dear to you. The central theme of flight in the song appears to represent freedom and hope, along with the ability to grasp them through one's own strength. To the founder of the House of Argonin, who survived the ravages of war and strived to bring peace to the world, this desire must have been more precious than all else. And that's it. We just read everything. That didn't take as long as I thought it would, but I find all that really interesting. I think I've only read through all of that once, and that explains the ridiculously powerful magic that Callista and the House of Argonin have. Is that there was a woman known as the Sorceress that married the founder of House Argonin, and that's what gives, her magic extreme power. You were smart, you didn't follow me down there. So, and only the bearer of the outsider's mark and the heir of House Argonin can do the rite that can undo the rite that was done. So, I don't know. It's ridiculous. Also, this guy will continually say that. But, wow. I mean, I know this episode wasn't, the most entertaining, which, by the way, we never did look at Zale's knight's attire. It looks a little better. Still like the heavy armor better. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's, there was a lot to that. I mean, I don't really, you know, I don't see everyone being that interested. I mean, it does explain the story a little better, and it does give more of an insight into the founder of House Argonen's mind, and that him and the sorceress, you know, met and fell in love, and then she, you know, died, splitting the outsider in two. I really do find all of that interesting. I do. But I mean, it's whatever. You don't have to read that. You don't get anything for that. So honestly, you could go through the whole game and not read it. But this game's story is so good, I recommend going through that. If you play on your own. I mean, if you're watching this Let's Play, I mean, obviously you've seen a lot up to this point. But regardless, I thought that was a good read, and that explains a good bit, and it also explains the history in a little bit more detail than we get through the main game. Anyway, that does it for this episode of The Last Story. We don't have too much left to do. There is one final arena fight, and I've never done it. I'm going to be fighting an enemy I've never fought before. How am I going to fare? We'll find out. Am I going to do some off-screen searching and foraging to complete the dragon armor and make it +9 and go in ultimately powerful and destroy this thing utterly? You'll find out next time on Rudrick Plays The Last Story. See you guys then.
Ah, some good brawling today. Anyone up for a quick pint at the tavern?
That sounds well good. To the pub.
Curse you all! Don't think this is the end of me!